Before we take a break, I want to briefly talk about the Indy 300 situation with Dan Wheldon. This is a really unfortunate situation where yesterday, Sunday, I was at the gym on the treadmill, and they had this race up from Las Vegas. There was a crash. It was revealed that Dan Wheldon, one of the racers, had died during the crash. CNN started reporting on it. It started popping up on lots of other screens that were there in front of me. And every death is tragic. I have no problem with this being reported. People care about IndyCar racing, but I can't help but think of the fact that these are people who make a lot of money in a profession they're choosing to go into, knowing the risks. Everybody knows it's a particularly dangerous profession to have, and there is just almost no attention being paid to so many other places in the world where tens of thousands of people are being tortured or in slavery or dying. Tens of thousands of kids dying from hunger. They're not choosing to go into any dangerous profession. They're just dying. And Natan doesn't like this line of reasoning.
No,
I can tell.
I mean, I don't see how... I mean, you could argue the same thing for the entire reporting of sports. I mean, there are athletes that get paid millions of dollars. Why report anything that happens in sports?
No, I think that's different.
Or even if you accept that, okay, this is a death, so it's different. Well, what about like a baseball player getting killed in a car crash? I mean, how is it any different? Should none of that be reported?
I'm not saying it shouldn't be reported. It makes it incredibly clear the disparity in terms of how much we're hearing. If the idea is this is sad and people should be concerned, right? If that is the idea, which it may not be. It may be this is sensationalist, this is someone people know about. If the idea is to report news about places where bad things are happening, there's plenty that we're not hearing a word about. Do you agree with Natan on this? Where do you fall on this, Monty?
I fall a little bit more on your side,
Okay.
I think, where they should cover it. There should be some coverage of it, but that there are plenty of other things that go absolutely undercovered or never covered that are of vastly more importance in the grand scheme of things. That being said, those kids aren't rich and famous, so why would we care about them?
Well, is that what it is?
I think that's why, we sell what sells. And these people are rich and are famous, and we care more about Steve Jobs dying than the million other people that died that day.
Than all of the people that committed suicide from stress in Foxconn factories where they are making the iPhones, for example.
Right.
What were you going to say,
No,
Natan?
all I'm saying is that I don't know how we can single out this specific story in terms of, not reporting on something more important.
I'm not singling it out. It's a catalyst for discussing this on the show. In other words, if there's a set number of minutes that are going to be devoted to people dying on every newscast, why is it only when it's a race car guy who has chosen to drive a car at 240 miles an hour in a circle versus all of the kids who were just born into poverty? There's much more we could do. There's much more people could do if they heard about the kids dying in Africa than anybody's going to do about keeping these guys safe on the road, right? The individual can do much more about the kids in Africa.
That's true. I could make the same point every time there's another Republican debate. I think this week they're going to have their 12th debate or something.
Yeah.
And, we could say the same for most of the news that's covered. I mean, there are more important things that could result in greater audience awareness about important issues than what's actually reported.
If they don't report on this issue, who's going to convince Danica Patrick to drive again? Which is the only real reason to watch the sport.
Yeah, I guess that's the question.
In all seriousness, though, I mean, this is a dangerous sport, and if reporting this issue will make people lobby for a safer sport, I'd say that's a legitimate use of media.
How many people will marginally safer IndyCar restrictions save versus the number of people that could be saved if a few thousand people got involved, a few more thousand people got involved with tuberculosis in Africa? I don't know. I mean, if the idea is how many people will be saved as a result of engagement, there's much better topics to discuss on CNN, I think.
Once again, the same argument could be made about almost anything that's reported.
But think of how the media works. You have to sell what's selling. Even us, informally, we're talking about the kinds of things that people gravitate towards your show about may not be the things that are the meat and potatoes of the show. People and the media trying to generate ad revenue is going to sell what's selling, and what sells is fiery car crash in IndyCar, and what never sells, unfortunately, except for the small independent media such as yourself, are the trials and tribulations of children in Africa.
I mean, if I were going to make your argument, I'd say that our local news channel and probably a lot of local news channels in the U.S. they have like 1/3 of their time spent on talking about the weather.
Oh, believe I've done my local weather rant. Local weather, it's so popular. People want to see the weather. I don't know why. I look it up on my phone.
I know
I know the weather for the next week. We're way over time. We'll do the local media rant a different day. Let's take a break. Please make sure to like the David Pakman Show on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show, and we'll be back with Adam Winkler in just a couple minutes.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.